You're listening to Exploring Anime with Friends, a JMO for Real podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and all major podcasting networks. I'm your host, JMO! And today's friend is my wife and co-host, Sarah. How's it going today, Sarah?
Hi, everyone. It's going pretty good.
Excellent, excellent. You excited for today's episode?
I'm always excited for an episode of Exploring Anime with Friends.
Awesome, awesome. Movie edition, right?
Movie edition.
Yes. Exploring Anime with Friends movie edition. That's what we're on this week. Today we will be exploring the world of Black Clover, Sword of the Wizard King, a shonen fantasy based off the popular Black Clover anime series, released in June of 2023. For the next 20 to 25 minutes, we will dive into the world of Black Clover. First, we will take a look at the events that have happened that have led up to this point in time, both earlier in the Black Clover storyline and the events that happened 10 years before this to set up this movie. Afterwards, we will meet our main protagonist and some of the other heroes that help to battle the great evil that they will be coming against that is threatening the Clover Kingdom. Finally, we will take a look a little at how some of these battles play out and the conflict to save their existence. If you like what you hear today, remember to check us out on social media. Like, subscribe, and follow. So a little bit of history. I'm going to jump in right at the beginning here, and I'm just going to go right through this. And then I'll throw it to you when we're talking about the actual first events of the movie.
Sounds good.
The world of Black Clover, it is 100% based in a fantasy setting.
Yep.
So it is a very popular shonen protagonist. So there are strong shonen elements to this. Power of friendship, the hero that is rallying everyone around. It has all the elements that you're used to seeing.
It really does.
From the shonen genre as a whole. But at the same time, it doesn't detract from the fantasy setting whatsoever.
Yes.
So they do a good job blending those two settings as a whole. The overall premise of this is when children come to age in this fantasy setting. That's when they are given their grimoires. They go to this library place and the grimoires come off the wall and they go to the new students of magic and that grimoire becomes their magic. That's what they're going to do. They either get a 1-star clover, a 2-star clover, or a 3-star clover grimoire. And sometimes, in rare cases, there is a 4-star clover. The first 3 clovers represent faith, hope, and love. And obviously, if you have 1 clover, you're not as strong as someone who has 2 or 3, so on and so forth. But the 4th clover not only represents faith, hope, and love, but it also represents good luck, good fortune. And when we go there, our 2 main characters, Asta and Yuno, Asta being our main character, he doesn't get a grimoire at all. And his friend Yuno gets the good luck one. He gets the 4-star clover. So Asta leaves, he's dejected and everything, and then suddenly comes to realize, wait a minute, something is happening. And apparently there is a 5-star clover. And the 5th leaf represents the devil.
Dun, dun, dun.
Asta is a boy with no magical energy whatsoever, someone who would not be able to utilize a grimoire at all, even if one did choose him, now finds himself the only possessor of anti-magic. And he can use these powerful swords, wield it with his physical frame to reflect, neutralize, and cut through the very essence of magic. And this is the character we're following. The land is set up in a way to where there's 9 major wizard guilds, and there's a wizard king that they're all accountable to. The wizard king is above the nobles are above the 9 major guilds. And there's a guild of outcasts that Asta, frankly, is welcomed into by their leader, Yami, and that is the Black Bulls. Yuno, meanwhile, goes to the Golden Dawn, the most powerful noble guild. There's a guild system. There's a caste system. There's those
classes.
who are higher up. There's nobles. There's peasants. There's not really that much of a middle class. It's just if you're lucky enough to be a guild warrior, a guild knight. So, but ultimately, they all answer up to the Wizard King. And the Wizard King, during both this movie and the majority of the Black Clover series, is the Wizard King Julius, who has temporal powers. Now, with all of that set up, talk to us a little about the opening scene 10 years before the movie begins.
It's really cool. I'm not gonna lie. So part of the coolness is some of the guild leaders are there, and you get to see them 10 years previous.
A young Yami.
A young and kind of like small. Like Yami's big and bulky. He bulked up in 10 years. But basically, what happens in the beginning of you see King Julius, you see Yami, and you see Julius, and you see some of the other royal knights, and they're going against someone else who's like, this guy's maybe slightly manic. He was the current Wizard King at that time. And he's got this, like, crazy sword, and you're like, what's going on? What is this?
The sword of the Wizard King.
The sword of the Wizard King. And basically, he wants to, like, remake things. He doesn't like the world as it is, and he's going to use this power from the Wizard King sword to just remake it. And Julius is like, no, this is wrong. Like, you can't just remake everything. And it's a pretty epic clash, and Julius seals him away. And you're like, oh, good, this guy's no threat anymore. Julius sealed away. Yay!
No threat anymore. Obviously, he wouldn't be shown in the first 10 minutes of the movie as the big bad boss if he was no threat anymore, right?
Of course. So 10 years later, they're holding this great grand tournament. And at this point in time, the end of season 4.
You remember what the tournament's for, right?
I remember it's called the Tournament of Triumph.
Yeah, well, and it's also to see if anyone amongst any of the appointed of the guilds could actually potentially be the next Wizard King. There's a chance that they're interviewing
that's right.
that they're interviewing to be the next Wizard King in this tournament.
So at the beginning, we find out that where it sits at in season after season 4, Asta is technically banned. He's not supposed to be in the country, and of course he sneaks in and signs up under some fake name. And Yuno's the first one we see step out on the field, and like he knows it's Asta. It doesn't matter what name he's under. It doesn't matter what like cloak he's covering his face with. He knows it's Asta. But before they can even really start to go at it,
can I interject a moment really quick there?
Absolutely.
We mentioned Yuno and Asta, and obviously we mentioned that they're rivals and whatnot, but this isn't in a way that it's like Midoriya and Bakugo.
Oh, yeah.
It's not in a way to where it's even Naruto and Sasuke.
Yeah.
They're actually very friendly with each other by this point in time.
Maybe a little sarcastic sometimes, especially from Yuno's angle.
It's not really super passive-aggressive. There is a little bit of passive-aggressiveness, but they have a huge respect for each other.
They do, and I feel like they genuinely like challenging each other.
Yeah, no, they're looking to push each other to the limit to where it's one of the two of them, and the other one just barely missed out.
Yeah.
They're not looking to put down their rival completely. They're driving their rival forward. It's a very healthy rivalry.
It is. Like, even like when Yuno finally is like calls Asta by his name right as the fight's starting, there's this little smirk, and it's not like a snarky smirk. It's like I knew it was you. I knew you could be here smirk.
Yeah, and for the record, Julius the Wizard King obviously knew that
oh my
Asta
gosh,
was
he
gonna
had
be there
to.
too.
He had
like,
to.
because he smiled when he saw the masked cloaked person coming out to the field. And yeah, I'm guessing Yami probably knew too. So it's not like he surprised everyone. He was there because the Wizard King allowed him to be there.
Yeah, I don't think anything gets by Julius.
Yes.
Right as they're getting ready to start their big fight, I was genuinely looking forward to that. I wasn't necessarily disappointed on the stuff that happened afterwards, but I was genuinely looking forward to that fight.
They're not going to give you the fight.
No, they're not. Everything happens. Conrad, like, reappears out of nowhere with the sword still, and he's got buddies with him.
Yeah. He brought back 3 of the previous Wizard Kings.
They don't tell you.
With him.
They don't tell you at first that they're Wizard Kings, though. It's just like, oh, he's got 3 lackeys. No, they're freaking Wizard Kings.
They're Wizard Kings that align with his vision.
Yeah.
Even if they don't necessarily know if he's going to be able to pull off everything that he says he will.
Yeah. And as former Wizard Kings, they are strong. They are powerful. Their powers are awesome.
If you like what you're hearing so far, remember to check out this movie for yourself. You can find it on Netflix. And if you like what you're hearing from this show, like, subscribe, and follow on social media. Everything will be linked in the show notes. All right, let's talk a little bit about these 3 other Wizard Kings that joined him.
Okay. So, I don't know who's my favorite, to be honest. I like them all. As bad guys, I like their powers.
It's funny, too, because I'm going to argue that they're not even bad guys.
I mean...
They have distorted worldviews.
Yeah.
But ultimately...
They're helping the bad guy.
Yeah, they're helping the bad guy.
They're really helping him.
And their sense of justice is so strong that they're willing to commit atrocities to do it.
It's like the Magneto complex.
Yeah.
It's like Magneto from Marvel. He's doing all the wrong things, but he's got all the right reasons to do them.
Yep. But continue on.
I want to point out that one of the Wizard Kings is a girl. So you can be a girl. You're not the Wizard Queen. You're still the king. I thought that was kind of cool. Her name's Princia. She's a great fighter. I don't know how deep we're getting into this right now. I love her fight specifically.
She's the one-woman army.
She is the one-woman army. She basically like summons these chess pieces, gigantic like steel probably chess pieces or iron or like I don't know, some strong metal. And they fight for her and she's my favorite. I figured it out just by talking about it again. She's my favorite. The second one is Jester. His stuff's crazy. It's barriers.
Yeah,
if you wanna
it's
make
all barrier
If you want to make it simple.
It's both offensive and defensive.
Yes, which is also really cool. And the last guy is Edward, and it's all snow and ice and freezing, and he just like summons this building out of nowhere, and
I think it was
cool.
Called Cathedral at the End of the Earth.
Something like that. Yeah.
No, it was a pretty
cool.
awesome move. It made the whole like battlefield into. I compare it kind of to like Jujutsu Kaisen domain expansion.
Kind of like a domain expansion. Yeah.
So it made the whole battlefield Sub-Zero, which was pretty awesome. But and that's what we're dealing with. And the big bad guy Conrad, whose motive is different than the other three that he brought back, because they're doing it for fully pure intentions. He's doing it for that. But his background story is a tad more complicated than that. He had some really bad stuff happen to him in his past because of the class system. Nobles came against him and whatnot. Even as the Wizard King, he lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
And bitterness set into his heart.
I think he was also like framed for some crazy crime too, and that on top of it all, like
it's terrible what happened to him. But in his mind, now what he's going to do, he's going to destroy the whole Clover Kingdom, destroy every last person in it.
And just remake it.
And he's just going to bring it back, but he's not bringing it back in an image of justice. He's bringing it back almost like in his own image. He has adapted a sort of a god complex. It actually vilifies him a little bit further. There was a purity and innocence when the other ones were talking about why this needed to get done.
You're right, there was.
But for him, there was malice and oppression.
Yeah.
So, and to combo that, he can actually steal people's magic from them.
I hate that so much.
Drains the magic from their grimoire, and he stores it. He has this spatial magic where he can unlock their different magics behind different keys and different doors, and he can use them for himself. So really, it's just kind of the making of a wonderful villain overall, because no one can do anything against him except for Asta.
Yeah.
So it's pretty clear.
I love anti-magic.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that the battle at the end has to be one-on-one.
It really does.
Even if there's 100 of you left standing and you have the other three defeated, they can't go anywhere near that battle.
Because they're just going to get their magic stolen.
They're just going to make the villain more powerful.
Yeah.
So it's already set up to where it has to be a one-on-one. And the craziest thing about it is, and I'm not going to talk too much more about that battle or Asta, but him and Asta both have a phrase that they've used in the movie, and where he knows that it connects the two of them, and he really wants to recruit Asta to be part of him and part of his kingdom. And the phrase is, "My magic is never giving up."
Yep.
They've both seen the inequality. They've both been poor. They've both been peasants. They've both seen the injustice in the system. And there's a lot that links them together, and more that links them together than tears them apart. The only thing that really separates them is the fact that Asta says, even if you're oppressed, you have no right to take a life. In that oppression. It came across as very Martin Luther King Jr. versus Malcolm X in a sort of debate.
Makes sense. I can get that.
When you really kind of think about it, you kind of see a little bit of that. So, and it was one of those things where it's kind of like, there are ways to combat oppression and there are ways to combat injustice, but don't make yourself the monster. Make yourself the hero.
Yeah.
And that's what Asta's whole thing was. Because he's trying to change the world, change society by becoming better, someone that people can look up to and follow. I know that there's a lot of gray when it comes to that.
Yeah,
but really that's the whole thing that separates this whole thing apart. And now we're going into some of the clashes, and they have to have a resistance against it. These four former Wizard Kings all just kind of deplete a lot. They capture most of the captains. There's some captains that are away, and a resistance forms against them amongst the Black Bulls, the few remaining captains, and the few that were able to struggle away. Talk to us about this resistance and how they come together.
So thankfully, there's quite a few people around that are trying to do the best they can. So first things first, they do have numbers. They might not necessarily have the firepower that they know of, but they have the numbers.
And they do have 3 captains, including the captain of the Golden Dawn.
So that's a good start. That's a great start.
And they also have someone who's even more powerful than the average captain, too. Talk to us a little bit about her.
I absolutely love Marileona. She's one of my favorite, kind of side characters that I just can't get enough of. She's feisty. She's determined. She's got that firepower that her brothers do and just adds to her character. She's fantastic. I love her so much.
Very brash, very outspoken,
yes.
very
powerful.
Loud. She lifted a whole airship by herself
She
effortlessly to put it back on path.
No, she's so great. The cool thing that kind of helps them, I don't believe this was seen in the series. It's been a while since we've watched it. But the Black Bull's headquarters, which is a dude.
Henry.
A dude, Henry. He uses his power and turns the building into a friggin' airship. Yeah. And it's so great.
It's a very funny scene as a whole because they're all channeling their magical energy into Henry so Henry can maximize what the Black Bull headquarters can become.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Charmy, one of the members of the Black Bulls, her power is super cooking. Yes, her power is super cooking.
God, love that power.
She can keep on feeding everyone at a fast rate with her sheep chefs. Yes, she has sheep that are chefs.
They're great too.
And it keeps on restoring their magical energy, so there's an endless supply because she's more or less just cooking for everyone the whole time.
I love Charmy. She's adorable too.
That all comes against, and they are able to separate them all, and we have 4 major clashes to find the end of the whole thing. First up, it is Marileona versus Princia, the 2 powerhouses clashing head-to-head. Just a few quick words without going into the end of the fight.
It's a great fight. If you love those big, strong characters going at it, Marileona is throwing her fire. Princia is super strong defense, getting her chest soldiers going everywhere. I absolutely love this fight, and there's only one thing I really want to point out at the very end. She's wearing armor. Princia's wearing armor. But at the end, her big finale thing is, her armor just shifts and turns and sits on her, and she's suddenly the queen chess piece. And I nearly, I freaked out when I saw that. I loved that so much. I thought that was so great. I wasn't expecting it for some dumb reason. That was my favorite fight. And they bonded too. Marileona and Princia, bonded during this fight.
Yeah, no, it was pretty awesome. And then in addition to it, Yuna gets his big battle. He squares off versus Jester. And while he's attacking around there, he's able to free 3 of the captains that got captured, including Yami, Fuegoleon, and Nozel. So the 3 of them are providing a level of support to Yuno.
Yeah.
As Yuno's mostly taken on Jester with distraction. Yuno plus distraction against Jester. And that clash is awesome to watch.
It's definitely great.
And finally, you have the rest of the Black Bulls all together taking on Edward in the absolute 0 setting. They pick it off one at a time. They get through barriers. They're laying all sorts of traps and counterintelligence. They're working together great as a team. All of them are working together great as a team to isolate them on the 4 different battlefields, giving Asta his showdown
his one-on-one
with Conrad. And that is where we're going to leave you guys off. Because we definitely encourage you to watch this movie, and we definitely encourage you to watch this series as a whole. We hope we didn't spoil too much from the series. Anything you want to say about Black Clover, Sword of the Wizard King, or Black Clover as a whole?
I mean, I definitely enjoy both. Even if you haven't seen Black Clover, I would say that Sword of the Wizard King, you could definitely watch solo. You get more context with actually watching the episodes, but you can definitely watch it by itself. If you don't want to jump into the anime, just try the movie.
Yeah, you'll appreciate the characters a little more if you watch the anime first. But at the same point in time, the movie can be watched pretty standalone. It follows the shonen format.
It does, yeah.
We're not trying to shock you or awe you with this one. It's pretty straightforward as a whole. But it was an enjoyable movie to watch. For a fan of Black Clover, I would say that this is a must include.
Absolutely.
So once again, we set the groundwork and we shared with you some of the setting of the Black Clover Kingdom. Afterwards, we went into some of our heroes, met our villains that they opposed, and some of the cool clashes that made up the story of Black Clover, Sword of the Wizard King. We hope you had as much fun exploring the world of Black Clover, Sword of the Wizard King as we did, and consider watching this anime movie. So if you like what you heard today, make sure you listen to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you stream your podcast. Listen to all of our JMill for Real podcasts. And hit us up on social media, like, subscribe, and follow. Once again, this was Exploring Anime with Friends. Let's explore together. And now for a word from our sponsors. Bin Buster. Live from YouTube, it's Tuesday night, the call sign of the Bin Buster YouTube channel. Once you hear this, you know you're about to embark on a journey through pop culture, movies, comics, and more. Buckle up and enjoy the ride every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. EST. Poppin' Cinema with Joe Mama and friends. Showcasing the power of cinema, join Joe Mama as he introduces different friends each week to a movie they have not seen before, popping their cinematic cherry as they talk about the movie they just watched every Tuesday at midnight.